Got about a 2-mile road walk here, so I'm going to tell another family story. Wow, let's see. Kind of bright. Not too bright. I think it's gonna be okay. What do I see up there? Oh, it's a tree squirrel. They have the most amazing tree squirrels in this country. They look like eastern tree squirrels, those gray squirrels that they got back east, except for everywhere that is kind of tan brown on an eastern tree squirrel or gray squirrel is white on these guys. And they have these big old tufts on their ears about this high. Look like they got horns on their head. Anyway, I'm gonna tell you the bear story. I always call it the bear Bible story because that's what remained of the story. Anyhow, when we were young, we had these goats. I think I told you about the goat band story. We had these goats and we went for a big hike up in what's called the White Cloud Mountains. And that was big for us. We had a lot of little kids. I mean, my youngest was like 4, I think, at the time. And in fact, she's a tough cookie. Rachel V is. And we had her up there. She got a cold like the first day. Gosh, that girl walked and walked and walked. Anyway, what we noticed is on the first day of our hike, we passed this little lake called 4th of July Lake. And 4th of July Lake wasn't much of a hike up there, probably 3 or 4 miles. And we had noticed that there was a bear in a person's tent across the lake when we got there. We were taking a rest and playing in the water a little bit. And there was this bear in these people's tent, other side of the lake. I thought, dang, that's not good. So we continued walking. And we walked and walked over the hill to this place that we were going called Ant Basin. And we walked and walked. Finally got there, and by golly, we're just setting up camp, and this bear showed up at our camp, right? Just a little bitty guy. He's probably less than a year old. Almost certainly less than a year. And probably about knee high, I think. But I'll tell you what, he was determined to get into our food. And let me tell you, he did get into our food. Now, it was a saga that went on for days and days, the bear, right? The first day, my oldest son, was getting into the food over there where they'd put it, and he walked into the bushes, and guess who was into the food ahead of him? The bear, right? And boy, he came out of there. We didn't know he could run so fast backwards. It was pretty, I guess it was impressive. I didn't see that. That's the story I heard from others. And then later on, he was after our stuff again, like he wasn't afraid of us at all. So me and my son took after him with some rocks and chased him out of the camp. And but he wouldn't go far. We chased him up a tree and we couldn't get rid of him, right? So we tied up the food that night in a tree so he couldn't get to it. But we heard him out there fooling around, and sure as shooting, he crawled up the tree where we tied it off and chewed the rope off and got the food down. So we had to bring the food in with us, if I remember right. And so then we want to leave camp, right? So we thought, well, we're gonna go fishing up at these lakes. Because basically we're guarding the food day and night against this little bear. And we had a lot of food. It was a 10-day trip, I think. So by then we still had like 7 days worth of food. So what we decided we'd do is we'd hang the food off of a cliff and run the string down in this crack, right, where you really couldn't get to it. So we hung the food off the cliff, ran the string in a crack where you couldn't get to it, went off, had a great time fishing, caught a bunch of fish. You know, my wife, Granny, aka Doc, she is she loves to fish, but she's allergic to fish. She can't even touch a fish. So basically I didn't get to go fishing, but she had a blast using my fishing pole catching fish. And we brought fish home and we cooked fish. But guess what? We were coming around the trail coming back to camp, and what do we see over there where we had hung our food on the cliff? No food on the cliff. So we booked it over there, me and Josh, and sure as shooting, that bear had managed to drag that string out of there and then chew it off right smack on the right smack onto the cliff. There's blood all over where he'd skinned himself up, you know. What a deal. Anyway, so we were dealing with this determined bear, and the problem was at night, what do? You know, I mean, you can't tie it up, you can't do anything like that. We had this little black dog with us. We had this little black dog, a Schipperke, right? Obnoxious little thing. Anyway, what we finally decided we could do to keep the bear out of the food at night was tie the little Schipperke to all the food. So we put the food in a pile and then tie the Schipperke up there to the food, and the bear absolutely left the food alone. Now we had figured out how to thwart the bear. He was afraid of that little dog, and he would not. Now the dog didn't seem to be too impressed with the idea. He wanted to be in the tent. But anyway, that's how we overcame the bear. And so the Bear Bible thing came about. I think it was the first night we had that, maybe the second night. I think we tied it up one night, and then after he chewed it down, we knew we couldn't tie it up anymore. So I think we stuck it all in a spot where we thought that he wouldn't come. So we had it all in backpacks and stuff like that. I may not be getting this exactly right. If I'm not, you guys can correct it as you hear it. But anyway, the food's in the backpacks. Or maybe there wasn't food in the backpacks, but at any rate, the bear got into the backpacks for sure. And he was chewing up everything and tearing, so we heard him out there. So we got out and chased him off. And I had this little, about this big, like a New Testament, you know, in my backpack that I was reading to the kids when they got bored. We actually did have a rainstorm that trip, and we read that a lot. But anyway, the bear, when he was trying to gnaw his way through the pack, put a big old bite mark in that New Testament. And it had a leather cover on it. A fellow named Brian Reese had given it to me when I went in the Marine Corps, and it had a leather cover on it, and by golly, that thing to this day still has a bear bite in it. And that's why we call it the Bear Bite Bible. So anyway, those are old family stories. That's a pretty good one, you know. Glad Granny was thinking about what I ought to be doing when I'm on these hikes, and especially hiking out here where it's not that pretty, where there's not that much interesting things to do, and she suggested that, so here you go.